But first, if you think China is a security concern for Australia, spare a thought for the United States. The New York Post has just published a report detailing how Chinese entities have bought up farmland surrounding 19 US military bases, including strategic nuclear sites. Now, while the Chinese entities make up only about 1% of foreign land owners in the United States, it's the proximity of these land holdings to military bases that has raised concerns. Donald Trump agreed it was a major concern when the issue was brought to his attention by Dr. Phil recently.
The red is where Chinese government has funded buying major farmland, and then superimposed on that are some of our most strategic military bases. And you can see we've allowed them to come in and buy up agricultural land, wind farms, no wind, no blades on some of the towers, but they're surrounding our military bases. Right. We've allowed that to take place.
So, Joe and Liz, it's obviously a massive concern. I mean, from those locations, you can record and report military troop movements. They'd make ideal locations to launch drones if you wanted to do that.
Perfect.
And of course, there's a lot of talk about Chinese surveillance, whether it's through electric vehicles, whether it's through computer systems. And we might look a little later at what Andrew Hastie brought our attention to over the weekend, talking about wind turbines even being used as props for surveillance. So it's a massive issue where you've got 19 military bases effectively surrounded by Chinese land holdings that are connected to the Communist Party.
So many questions. Firstly, what are the Chinese doing owning that much farmland anywhere? Secondly, how hard is it for the government to just be like, not near our military bases? We don't want to discourage foreign investment. We still want your money, China, but not within spitting's distance of our military bases.
And thirdly, how does Dr. Phil know all this?
Well, that was my other question.
Shouldn't the CIA be talking to this guy?
Why is it taking a very famous but a psychologist raising this instead of the government being like, red flag, I think we've screwed up here? How hard is it for the government to say you can't buy any land that close to our military bases? But then, of course, it just reminds me of the fact that Port of Darwin is still in CCP's hands. Landmark is totally in the CCP's hands. They're the ones who have got a hold of it. And not only is that an actual port, which is incredibly important in any kind of wartime. I mean, what wins wars? Logistics, which is why ports are so carefully guarded and very much attacked during wartime. So they're right on top of it. Yeah. Our military bases are all around the Port of Darwin for that very reason.
It's more that they have troop movements.
And we're just like, we're fine for it. And
America.
even the Albanese government last year, when they had their review into it, and this actually isn't an elbow bashing because the Morrison government had a review into it and decided it was perfectly fine as well. Because apparently, Australia, it's not in our national interest to protect our national interests if it means upsetting our biggest threat. Come again?
Just for people at home, we'll put a map up on the screen so you can have a look at these US bases and the land holdings around them owned by Chinese entities. So you can see it's spread right across the US there.
And it's so clearly on purpose. It's just like,
in fact,
you have a base, we have
The New York
farmland.
Post reported about some wind farms that had been created by the Chinese, but there were turbines without any blades.
Yeah, that's right.
There were wind farms where there is no wind.
Yeah.
So it's quite clear there's an alternative.
Can I just say, I'm just loving the America show. Like, I just love, like, America is just so completely off the chart. Like, you've got China that is clearly got an advanced script of the next James Bond film and just going, oh, what did the villain do in that? Oh, turbineless, armless wind turbines that we can use to spy on Roswell. Like, it's just madness. I have no doubt the Chinese are up to some nefarious doings. I have no doubt the Americans are alive to it and aware of it. They would run all sorts of interference to make sure that they couldn't get a handle of what's going on. But the Chinese are everywhere anyway. I mean, the truth is everyone kind of knows what everyone's doing all the time, and it's just a matter of how many resources you have and how far you are prepared to go. So the Chinese, they probably don't need to use, the security cameras at the Australian War Memorial or offshore wind turbines to find out what we're doing. They probably just go in through the front door. God knows what they've got going on at Cubby Station, because they bought that a few years ago. And
you look at America, though. I mean, remember that they had those Chinese balloons just going across mainland United States as America just looked up and watched, and Biden refused to do anything about it. You've got what's happening at
But America would have all sorts of stuff in China as well. Like, it'd be harder because it's a less free society.
But they're on our side, so we're happy for America to spy on China. But for the Chinese to just have free range over the United States, then you've got the border issue where you've got thousands of people pouring into America. And
not sure many of those are Chinese, though. I don't think there's a lot of Chinese on the southern border.
Some of them are.
Some of them are.
Some of them are.
And then you've got other issues that relate to security, like the drug issue that Biden has allowed to come into the country. You've got crime is out of control. But back to the military bases, what the US did do, rather than secure military bases from potential Chinese surveillance, they renamed a number of US military bases at a cost of $39 million because they wanted some to be named after black men and women. So you can't say they're not paying attention to their military bases.
And racism solved, 2 birds in one.